Hi there friends, and welcome back to Soul Valley, where today I'm going to be building the Soul Valley Defense Tower. In our last episode, I put together this little construction site here where there are currently 6 villagers, some iron golems, and some copper golems, and today I'm going to transform this into the Soul Valley Defense Tower that's going to be one of the biggest builds I've ever created. My goal with this is to have it towering really high into the sky, and I realized in the last episode I didn't really show where this is in respect to my base, so I'm going to hop into free cam really quick. And my base is right over there, and so my goal with this is I want this tower to come up really high in the sky. I don't know exactly how high yet, but that way from my base over there, if I look over in the distance, I will be able to see the defense tower from my base looking over the valley, protecting from all invaders. I want this to kind of fit in with the landscape, and so I'm going to be using primarily andesite as the building block. I didn't want to use stone just because that would be a little too much blending in, but my goal is to kind of, blend it with the environment and make it look like when this was built, they built it with the resources that were available in the area. And I think that andesite and stone look similar enough that it would, be reasonable to think that, if someone were building here, that andesite would be what they build with. So, with that being said, I'm going to hop into a little resource gathering time lapse really quick, go get some andesite, and then I also need to get a bunch of sand to create more glass, because this is going to be primarily andesite and glass in this build. So, with all of that being said, let's hop into a resource gathering montage. I gotta say, I am so glad to have shulker boxes. Let me start smelting some stuff really quick. So, put those down. I've got 3 shulker boxes full of sand, plus all this excess sand. Plus, if I pull this out, I've got these filled with all of the various andesite things that I'm going to be needing to build my Soul Valley Defense Tower. But now, let's get started smelting all of this sand into glass. I always love to watch as it runs by and watch all of the furnaces light up as it goes. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff. Alright, and this is finishing up now. I have 2 shulker boxes completely full of glass, plus there's a little bit finishing up now. And then in these 2 shulker boxes, I've got all of the materials needed for some flower generators. So let me fly over here, and just in case anyone hasn't seen the episode where I made this, right here, I've got a little flower generator in the ground hidden underneath. I don't think there's any bone meal in there right now. No, there's not. But this is my flower generator. So if I head underground here, this is just my machine. If this had bone meal in it, then it would be dispensing bone meal up here, generating flowers. But this creates most of the general flowers that I would need, the dandelions, the poppies, the azure bluette, oxeye daisy. But there are a few that I need for some dyes for this build. I need blue orchids and I need eye blossoms. So I've got all of the materials that I need right here. I'm going to go to the pale oak forest, and then I'm going to go to a swamp and recreate this exact design just so that I could get a bunch of blue orchids and a bunch of eye flowers to get those dyes. And here is my blue orchid farm, which after 9 full stacks of bone meal has yielded me quite a bit of blue orchids, so definitely more orchids than bone meal used, net positive. And as you can see, I set it up next to this witch's hut here that I discovered all the way back in episode 1. And the reason for that is that way I can travel here easily for blue orchids, and I can also at some point set up a witch farm to get, glowstone dust, redstone dust, things like that, and have both of those together in the same place rather than, having 2 different swamp farms in different areas. I could just have them both here. And then I put a portal here that I have not yet gone through, but this will allow me to make it a little bit quicker back to my home base, and that is because I have been going through so many firework rockets. In the last episode, I crafted 3 full stacks, and now that I have elytra, I've been treating firework rockets as if they grow on trees, and I've just been blasting through them. So I want to make sure that I've got a quick and easy way to get to the swamp so that I don't have to blast through tons of firework rockets, at least until the time comes when I set up, a creeper farm and have unlimited supply of firework rockets. But for now, I just need to figure out a way to get from this portal back to my home base. Let's see if I can get a bearing for where I'm at. Oh, there's a bastion over there. But for now, I'm going to work on setting a nice safe path to get from this portal to my home base. All right, and we are back at the mountaintop. I've got all my shulker boxes here, and I cannot believe that I've been playing this long without shulker boxes. This made resource gathering and resource transportation so much easier. It only took me 1 trip to, after getting resources, of course, to pack all these boxes, load them up, and then make my way over here. In the past, this would have been like 5 or 6 trips back and forth, and it just takes forever. Plus having elytra now, so I can just fly around. I'm down to only 36 firework rockets, so I think my next project might be a creeper farm, just so that I could get more fireworks, but we'll worry about that in the next episode. But for now, I dug out this little hole in the side of the cliff right here, and I need to get all of these villagers moved out of the way so that I can tear down this construction site and get started with the actual defense tower. So that's going to be the next thing I do, is just getting these guys all moved into here so that they can be safely tucked away, safe from pillagers and zombies while I build their defense tower. And for those of you who are wondering why I put these obsidian blocks like this, the reason for that is when the pillager tower was still standing, this was the very center block of the top level of the pillager tower. And that's important because that determines the spawn radius of pillagers, which off the top of my head, I don't know the number. I think it's like 35 blocks sideways in all directions, and then 27 blocks up and 27 blocks down. So that block up there is the highest point where pillagers can spawn from this pillager tower, and then going out in all the directions, I made sure to put slabs all the way down to at this level right here where you can see it goes from slabs to grass. That's 27 blocks below this block. So in case anyone was wondering why there's just hovering obsidian blocks, and I made them out of obsidian so that I don't accidentally break them. Because, if I'm just in a rush and breaking things, if I get to obsidian, it's going to slow me down and I'll remember, oh wait, I don't want to break this. But anyway, I'm going to get started moving these guys, and it's time to get started with this build. there she stands, overlooking Soul Valley, protecting us from invaders. Let's get a little bit of a better vantage point here. So I really like the way this looks. I used a lot of soul lanterns and glowberries to make sure that it really shines, even from a distance. You can kind of see it at nighttime, off on the horizon, overlooking the valley. It really towers over, and I think that turned out really cool. I'm really happy with that. After all of that building, I am down to one single firework rocket, and this is a little bit embarrassing. I just learned that if I am holding my looting sword in my main hand and a bow in my offhand, and I kill something with the bow, the looting effect is still applied to it, which I'm sure many people watching this are like, well, yeah, everyone knows that, but this is just another example of me not knowing much about Minecraft and being a little behind the times. So I just learned that. I think that that's going to be very useful, and now that I have that knowledge, I am going to fly off in the distance, kind of outside of the range of my mob switch, and kill some creepers and get some gunpowder. We're back home after spending the night killing creepers. I managed to get 20 gunpowder out of that, so that'll get me a few more firework rockets, at least to get to and fro for a little bit now. But now we can see this in the daytime, and it's kind of funny. At night on the horizon, it's so bright, and then at the daytime on the horizon, it's so dull. Like, it almost looks like it's like shadowed out with how dark it is during the daytime. But here's kind of a better view of what it looks like during the daytime. Big tall tower, and then we've got these two kind of little glass domes on each side. One thing that I want to point out, a while back I used to use the Distant Horizons mod, and it kind of caused some weird rendering things that I wasn't a big fan of, and I got this comment on a video quite a while back, like 5 months ago. I think it was episode 8. I got this video from RavenPain87 mentioning that they use the Voxy mod, and so I decided to look into that, and that's actually what I'm using right now, and it just allows you to view much farther in the distance. So if I was not using the Voxy mod, I don't think that this would be rendered in right now. I think it's too far out of render distance, but because of the Voxy mod, we're able to see it all the way from here at my base, and it also just allows me to render much farther in the distance in all directions. So thank you, RavenPain, for that suggestion. I'm glad that I installed that, and so far I'm really liking the Voxy mod. But with that being said, I'm going to run down to my storage room, craft up some more firework rockets, and then we are going to head to the tower. I guess an Enderman's been here. Let's get rid of that. That is one weird part about the Voxy mod, is it only shows chunks that I have actually been to off in the distance, and since I haven't actually been to these chunks, it does this weird thing where it renders the chunks that are further out that I have been to, but not the ones closer that I have not been to. So at some point I'll just need to fly around and explore all the chunks, that way they're all visible. But we are now here at the base of my tower, so I'm just going to start from the bottom, and I did that trick that I've done in the past that I like to do where you put concrete behind a wall of tinted glass with a light source at the bottom, and it creates this cool kind of like gradient behind the glass. I have spawn-proofed the entire area where pillagers could potentially spawn, since this was originally a pillager outpost before I terraformed it and built this tower. It's still possible for pillagers to spawn here if they have a spawnable block. We are still within range of my mob switch. Over at my base, I've got a bunch of wardens trapped under my base, and we are within range of that. So because of that, pillagers can't spawn here. But let's say I wanted to spawn some pillagers. Maybe let's say I wanted to break their crossbows and use them, as NPCs somewhere in my world. I left a little square right here in the middle of spawnable blocks. So this part right here is the only area where pillagers would be able to spawn if I were to lower the render distance to allow them to spawn. But for the most part, they can't spawn here anyway. And so, for the sake of lore for this defense tower, since we've established in a previous episode that the pillagers are actually androids, we don't know where they come from. They come from another dimension, but they just show up in our world, and they're kind of hostile, but there is the ability to break their crossbow and make them no longer be hostile, but we still don't know where they come from. So Soul Valley, right over here, discovered this pillager outpost where pillagers were entering our dimension. They decided that this would be the perfect location for a defense tower, so we tore down the pillager outpost and converted it into this defense tower where we can block hostile pillagers from coming into our world and study the area, try and see if we can figure out what it is that allows them to travel from another dimension into our dimension. Up at the top here, I built this. I initially was thinking of doing like a satellite, but it looked kind of weird, you know, having this tall, skinny tower, having a big satellite dish at the top just didn't look right. So I was trying to think of what I could do. And the idea with it was, you know, since we know that these pillagers are coming from another dimension, this was something that was kind of, you know, reaching out, trying to look for signals, hoping that we could intersect signals and stop them before they get here. And since a satellite looked weird, I got this idea. I actually was watching, if anyone's watching Rendog, his current season of Hermitcraft, he's doing really cool stuff with kind of like arcane type builds. And one of his recent builds had not exactly like this, but kind of a similar concept where it was kind of like prongs coming out and angled upward. And I thought this was kind of a good alternative to a satellite because it's not one giant bowl, but it's kind of just like the corners. And I wish I had beacons at this point. At some point when I get a beacon, I think it would be cool to have a beacon shooting right up the middle and going all the way up. But since I don't have a beacon yet, that's not an option. I did make one small mistake. I built this an even number of blocks rather than doing an odd number. So instead of being one single center spot, there's actually a 2x2 center spot. And by the time I realized I did that, it was too late. So now instead of having one single center block of this tower, we have to have a 2x2 center. So I know that's going to irritate a lot of people, myself included, but I didn't realize it until it was too late and I didn't want to turn back. So now it's turned nighttime. Here's a cool view of our defense tower at night. And let's take a step inside. I've got this carpet down just to keep it spawn proof. In here, we've got the iron golem and the copper golems that were assisting in the building of the construction site, you know, at least according to lore. I left this here because this was the center block of, or this was the center of the top floor that kind of designates the spawn radius, and I wanted to make sure I don't lose track of this location. I've got a bubble column, and you can't see them because I'm using a texture pack, but I've got glass panes that kind of hold the bubble column in place so that the water doesn't escape and run off everywhere. But the reason I did a bubble column is because from the outside, we've got these windows, and I really like the way that it looks. I built this kind of, I don't know what you'd call this framework, like, I don't know, not scaffolding, but just beams or whatever, zigzagging across. And I wanted that to be visible and almost like see-through. Like as you're looking at this building, you can see all the way through it. And I thought about maybe building a staircase or an elevator, but I wanted to make sure that from any side you could see all the way through the tower. And this was the most see-through option. So I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I like the way that these zigzag up the sides. I think that looks really cool. So if we head on up to the first floor here, we've got more little iron golems and lots of glowberries as light sources. This is the room where some of the villagers are living. We've got Rayloff, we've got Taco, and we have got Cousin Eddie. Which those are the three attack-based librarians that I believe have Infinity, Sharpness 5, and Looting 3. So this is their room where they get to live and hang out. I'll probably do some more decorating in the future, but for now I just kind of gave them a table, some workstations, and some beds, and they get to enjoy nice scenic views of Soul Valley from most directions looking out. It's a nice little view they got here. And then if we work our way up once more... Oh, and I wanted to make sure that those guys couldn't make their way into the bubble column, so I put these trapdoors here so that I can crouch and get into it, and I don't have to worry about the villagers getting into it. Up here is the next dome where these villagers live, and these are the more defense-oriented villagers. So we've got Michael Skarn, we've got Zaphod Beeblebrox, and we have got Casimir Pulaski. And so these are the more defense-based villagers. And again, I just gave them a little table, their workstations, and some beds just so that they could kind of be comfortable. And then the next layer up, I don't currently have a way to get up there. And I didn't really put anything up there, but I'm going to hop into free cam just to show it. So up here, yeah, there's nothing really going on up here. I did leave this little opening in the glass right here so that, you know, if I want to fly in by firework rocket, I can land here and then enter up here. But there's nothing really going on up here for me to have reason to come up here. But yeah, and since we're in a jungle, I thought it was cool to have all this greenery kind of circling it, dangling, spiraling down. And I'm really glad with how these glass domes dangling off the side turned out, with the growth underneath it kind of dangling. For the sake of lore, since this is solarpunk, I recently learned of something called solar windows, which the idea is it's similar to a solar panel, except it's see-through, so you could use it as a window, and it harvests solar energy just like a solar panel would, except you could use it as a window. And just for the sake of lore, it doesn't really do this, but we're going to say that these are solar windows. So as this tower's high above, there's nothing really blocking light from any direction, so it gets full sunlight all day, with the exception of, if it's cloudy or rainy. This absorbs a lot of sunlight and is able to generate a lot of power, while simultaneously keeping an eye out on the outside world and protecting Soul Valley from whatever might come to attack it. So yeah, this is the defense tower, and I am pretty glad with how this turned out. I think that it looks really good, especially at night. I love the way that it glows. It looks pretty cool in the daytime too. So I just slept through the night in Michael Scarn's bed so that we could get a good view of the tower in the daytime here. So this is what we've got in the daytime, all the plants dangling, and I think it turned out really good. I still need to do some work with terraforming around here. Currently, I didn't really do much with the terraform. I just, made sure that it was all stone and all spawn proof in the area where pillagers could spawn. So for right now, I just wanted to make sure that the tower is built, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. The way to get down is with this button and trapdoor here. The reason I did it this way is just to make sure that the villagers stay on the floor that they're supposed to be on. But I just step on here, fall down, there's a little water patch down here, and then over here, same deal. So to get up is by Bubble Vader, and then to get down, I just do this. And before I wrap this episode up, this terrain generation in the background behind me right now is kind of bothering me. I mentioned earlier that with the Voxy mod, it will show any chunks that I have been to, but since I have not explored those chunks, they are not rendering, and it just looks kind of weird, kind of blocky. I don't like that. So since I just killed a bunch of creepers, got a bunch of gunpowder, and have plenty of firework rockets, I think I'm going to head off this direction and just kind of unlock these chunks so that when I'm at my defense tower, these chunks will be visible and won't have this weird terrain generation. Alright, and after some time flying around, I used over 50 rockets and explored a lot of the terrain behind me there to unlock it for the Voxy mod to be able to render it. And this is a much better view than it was before, when there were a lot of unloaded chunks and it was kind of clipping out and not looking that great. Obviously, this direction, there's still a lot more to do. Pretty much all directions, honestly, other than over here where I just went. So now that I have Elytra, I'll be able to fly around and open up a lot more terrain to get a lot better horizons with the Voxy mod. But in order to fly around, I'm going to need to get some firework rockets, and that's probably going to mean creating a creeper farm, so that's something I might work on at some point in the future. And from this vantage point, it really puts things in perspective how small Soul Valley is. When I'm down here walking around, it doesn't feel that small, but when I'm up here looking down, it's really not that huge of a little town that I've built here. I'm still proud of it, I love it, I'm happy with it, but it just puts things in perspective. It's not that big of a little town. But I think that's going to just about do it for this episode. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to watch this. I appreciate all of you, and I had a lot of fun building the Soul Valley Defense Tower. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and if you did, maybe consider liking, subscribing, and maybe leave a comment to let me know your thoughts. But with that, I'm going to wrap things up, and I hope to see you all in the next episode. Thanks again, everyone. See you next time.